What's up everyone? I'm going to try to upload more because I haven't been doing that a lot recently. I've been very bad. But basically, I don't know if you know who Apostate Prophet is. If you don't, you're very lucky because he's probably the most annoying person on the internet. But basically, he claims that he like breaks our argument that Russia-Ukraine is the same thing as the Middle East wars. And I think he's just an idiot because this video is so freaking stupid. Let's just get into it.
In that Ukrainians are independent of Ukraine. Ukraine is a sovereign country at the border of Russia. Ukrainians are culturally related to Russians. There are some regions, especially to the east of Ukraine, that are predominantly Russian.
Okay, so basically, his whole point here, right, is that because this is a not a civil war, whereas most of the countries that America is involved in are civil wars, like Syria, Yemen, whatever, Afghanistan. But basically, his argument is, oh, because it's one country trying to take another country, therefore it's not the same as a civil war. Where I think he missed the entire damn point, because what Muslims complain about is the fact that you're complaining about civilian casualties. Because in Ukraine, we have, I think, 10,000 civilian casualties so far. That's awful, okay? And I really am sad that that's happened. But it's annoying that nobody complains about the civilian casualties in other countries. Nobody's mad about the fact that you're actually fighting the country. They're mad that you're killing civilians. Like, if you want to go fight Saddam Hussein, fight Saddam Hussein. Don't fight random people. You know what I mean?
Critical, and why there are no double standards. Number one, Ukraine is not comparable to Muslim countries that were occupied by America, for example, or invaded by different forces. Ukraine is a sovereign country, which is not in a civil war. What is happening in Ukraine is not a civil war, and was never a civil war. Just because there is a conflict, and because a separatist movement within the country wants to become independent or become part of a different country, that doesn't mean that there is a civil war going on, which is why it is not called a civil war. If that was a civil war, then Turkey would currently also be in a civil war, because Turkey has been brutally fighting with the PKK for 40 years now, because the PKK wants to separate itself from Turkey or become an autonomous state within Turkey.
So basically, he brings up Syria about how that's a civil war. He brings up Libya about how that was a civil war. And he brings up Afghanistan, how that was a civil war. And yeah, let's just get those out of the way first. So, I understand that America doesn't want to own Syria. What were the countries? Syria, where did you live off? Syria, Libya, and Afghanistan, right? But here's the thing. You have caused the country to become a hellhole. Take Syria, for example. First off, alone, America has killed 20,000 Syrians bombing it, right? You started the war. First you create rebel groups. The rebel groups turn into ISIS. Then ISIS comes around. So basically you created ISIS, right? And at least before the civil war, Syria was run by one country, right? Let's look at the map of Syria right now. Syria is like this. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different, or well, technically Rojava and Kurds are basically the same thing. Whatever, 4 different governments fighting. Nobody's even in control. It's a mess. And it used to be even worse. The map used to look like this, which all of that territory in gray is ISIS territory. And it's a simple fact that the Syrian civil war has resulted, which the West started, has resulted in the death of 306,000 people. But no one cared then. Did you see, was America giving aid to Syria? No, they were fucking bombing Syria, and I'm sorry for my language. Next we have Libya, which he brings up, and he mentions about, oh, it's a civil war. I already explained why that's stupid. Thousands of Libyans have died. But he says that there was a huge human rights violation. Okay. Okay, because Gaddafi, or however you pronounce his last name, the leader, when he it was even worse once he went out of power, because you had Western nations bombing Libya, right? You also had like 3 rebel groups fighting, chopping each other's heads off. The human rights were even worse after the war. Whatever. And as far as Afghanistan goes, you invaded Afghanistan, right? You get the Taliban out of power. You fight them in insurgency. America loses to the Taliban. They lost the war. And then the Taliban's back in power. So what happened? Absolutely nothing. The Taliban's still in power, and the war resulted in the death of 78,000 people. So he brings up Palestine, and just listen to it.
Go into that. A sovereign state named Palestine never existed. The Palestinian Arabs, after the fall of the Ottoman Empire and the control of the British Mandate of Palestine, had the choice to declare their own state. They did not do that because they didn't want Israel to coexist with them. So instead of declaring sovereignty, they aligned themselves with Egypt and Jordan and the Arab states and attacked Israel instead.
So he's such an idiot, he knows nothing about history, right? So, first off, a state named Palestine has never existed. He's such an idiot because most Arab countries throughout history have been caliphates. They have not been one country. For example, let me give a couple examples. For example, we had this caliphate because back then all the Muslim countries used to be one. They would not be different countries. They would all be one country. So it's such a stupid argument. And also, if we go back to biblical era, right, there has never been a sovereign state named Israel. Sure, there was the kingdom of Israel, but those aren't the same Jews as today. The Canaanites, I think I'm pronouncing that right, I don't even know, are Arabs, because the Jews of today come from converts from Europe. As we can see, study traces Ashkenazi roots to European women who probably converted to Judaism. And as you can see from what I highlighted, Ashkenazi Jews made up 70% of Jews worldwide. And he knows even less about history because, in fact, in 1911, right, before the 1900s, the area of Palestine had very few Jewish people. Jewish people did not live there. It wasn't until Zionism came along and Jews started to move from Europe over to Palestine and then wanted to create their own state. So in fact, it's actually the exact same thing, where basically this time the West is trying to take land. It's not a civil war, they're just trying to take land and create a democracy in the Middle East. And after the Holocaust, even more Jews immigrated over there. The current president, Herzog, that piece of garbage, his family came over from the Holocaust. Their Jews have not lived there. It's not their land. And then he brings up Iraq. He brings up how Saddam Hussein was a mass murderer, but in fact, actually, George W. Bush killed more Iraqis than Saddam Hussein. I mean, for example, this says that, let's just round that up, 300,000 Iraqis died from Saddam Hussein, whereas George W. Bush killed 1 million Iraqis. And if you know anything about math, a million is greater than 300,000. Oh, also back to that Israel-Palestine thing, I just wanted to mention there's never been a sovereign state named Ukraine before the Russian Empire. And before everyone brings up that Kiev existed, yeah, Kiev is called Kiev Rus, and Russians claim that was their original country. Like, that's where they descended from. Oh, also, he brings up how if you're fighting for ISIS, right, you're fighting for a terrorist group. Whereas, if you're fighting for Ukraine, you're defending a country. But Ukraine soldiers have literally, like, burned people alive and done Hitler salutes. Like, look this stuff up. They're not good people.
The refugees. I'm sorry. People in Europe will naturally be more willing to accept refugees from Ukraine, simply because Ukraine is a significantly more familiar culture and people.
Okay, so you're racist. That's basically what you just told me, is that you want people who are like you to live near you. Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay. Well, anyway, thanks for watching this video. I'll see you guys later. Bye.